Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video we are going to discuss MA English previous paper detailed analysis with answers, and this is the third video in the TG CPGET-2025 M.A. English previous year paper series, and we are going to discuss the previous year paper from 61 questions to 100 questions. And if you are new to this channel or if you haven't watched the previous videos, go and watch the first video on TG CPGET-2025 M.A. English previous year paper detailed analysis with answers. In that video we discussed first 50 questions in the previous year paper, and the second video is part 2 video of MA English previous year paper detailed analysis with answers. In that video we discussed the questions from 51 to 60, and now this is the third video in the previous year paper series, and in this video we are going to discuss the questions from 61 to 100 detailed analysis with answers. Let's look at the questions. Yes, we already discussed the first 60 questions in the previous videos, and in this video we are going to discuss the questions from 61 to 100. And the 61 question is, the idea of make it new is associated specifically with. Yes, the idea of make it new, the phrase make it new is associated with Ezra Pound, writer Ezra Pound, and who advocated and who is related to the movement Imagism. As we have 4 options, and the correct option here is Imagism, and the major proponent of Imagism movement is Ezra Pound, and he advocated for the renewal of literary forms and styles. And Ezra Pound urged the writers to break away from traditional modes of expression. He wants to bring new literary forms and styles. And Imagism is the early 20th century movement. So the correct option here is third option, that is Imagism. Make it new is related to Imagism. And the 62nd question, the movement that emphasizes the idea of hunger, sexuality and the pressures of society and economics on human life is. Yes, here the correct answer here they gave us 4 options: realism, naturalism, vorticism and structuralism. And the correct answer here is naturalism. Naturalism is the literary and artistic movement, and it is an extension of realism movement, and it emphasized the role of environment, heredity, social conditions in shaping human behavior. And it explored various ideas and various themes like hunger, sexuality, poverty, pressures of society, and struggle for survival, economics on human life. So the correct answer here is naturalism. Second option is correct. Let's move towards next question. 63rd question. In recent times, the Enlightenment has been criticized by some thinkers for. Here they are talking about, the question is about Enlightenment movement. Enlightenment is a cultural and intellectual movement, and which emerged during 17th and 18th century, especially in Europe. And the options are being too Eurocentric to the exclusion of other parts of the world, rejecting the role of emotions out of hand, being developed by writers with no political commitments, and ignoring differences in gender, race and the like. Yes, here the correct answer is fourth option. Some thinkers, the modern thinkers, criticized Enlightenment movement because this movement ignored the differences in gender, race and the like. So the correct answer here is fourth option. Let's move towards next question, 64th question. Which of the following statements is not true about the age of sensibility? Yes, the age of sensibility. The age of sensibility, it developed during 18th century, especially in England. Let's look at the options. it was a reaction to the Stoicism of the earlier age. Yes, it is the reaction against Stoicism. So in the question, you just underline the word not. Not true about the age of sensibility. Yes, it was a reaction against to the Stoicism of the earlier age. So the first option is true about age of sensibility, and it was developed during the 18th century, and it is also true about the age of sensibility. It was unrelated to the rise of the middle classes. Yes, here it is not true about the age of sensibility, because the growing middle class played a significant role in shaping the cultural, literary, and economic landscape of the time. So the rise of the middle classes is very much related to the age of sensibility. Here they gave us the option unrelated, so it is not true about the age of sensibility. So the third option is correct. Let's look at the fourth option. It owed a lot to Adam Smith, the economist. Yes, Adam Smith is the economist who has written wonderful books which helped in the development of the age of sensibility. In the age of sensibility, the writers gave importance to emotions rather than rational, and the major books written by Adam Smith were The Wealth of Nations and The Theory of Moral Sentiments. The Wealth of Nations and The Theory of Moral Sentiments. These are the major books written by Adam Smith. You will be getting questions on the books of Adam Smith. So the major books are The Wealth of Nations and The Theory of Moral Sentiments. Let's move towards next question. 65th question. Which of the following is not true about the movement known as modernism? Yes, here we got a question from modernism movement. Modernism movement, which was emerged in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Let's look at the options. It was an international movement that began in the closing years of the 19th century. Yes, as we discussed just now, it was emerged in the late 19th century and early 20th centuries. So the first option is true about modernism movement. Here in the question, underline the word not true. So the first option is true, and it was limited to literature. It excluded the visual arts such as architecture, painting, sculpture, and music. And the second option is not true about the movement modernism, because modernism was a movement which is related to various art forms like architecture, painting, sculpture, music, and literature. It was not only limited to literature, it included all the other art forms. So the correct option, the second option, is not true about modernism. So this is the correct option. And it was iconoclastic in the sense that it broke a significant number of rules of the past. Yes, it is true about modernism. In the modernism movement, the writers broke so many rules of the past. And the fourth option, it involved a fresh way of looking at the position of humans in the world. Yes, it is absolutely true about the modernism movement. Fresh way of looking at the position of humans in the world. So the correct option here is second, which is not true about the modernism movement. Let's move towards next question. 66th question. The author of the essay Commonwealth Literature Does Not Exist is. Yes, here they are asking the author of the essay Commonwealth Literature Does Not Exist. And the options are Frantz Fanon, Salman Rushdie, A.K. Ramanujan, and Ngugi Thiong'o. Here the correct answer is Salman Rushdie. Salman Rushdie wrote Commonwealth Literature Does Not Exist. So here the correct answer is Salman Rushdie. And Salman Rushdie published this essay in his essay collection, Imaginary Homelands, Essays and Criticism, 1981 to 1991. So the correct answer here is Salman Rushdie. Let's move towards next question. And the 67th question is, the Lake School of Poetry included. Here the question is about the literary group, the Lake School of Poetry, which is related to Romanticism movement. And here we have the options like Wordsworth, Coleridge and Robert Southey, Wordsworth, Coleridge, John Keats, Wordsworth, Coleridge and William Blake, Wordsworth, Coleridge and Byron. And here the correct answer is first one, William Wordsworth, S.T. Coleridge, that is Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Robert Southey. And the Lake School of Poetry, these are the group of English poets who lived in the Lake District of England. And they majorly focused on nature and the emotional and psychological depth in their poetry. And the major members in this group include William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Robert Southey. And the other members of this group include Thomas De Quincey and Dorothy Wordsworth, and she is the sister of William Wordsworth. Let's move towards next question, 68th question. Here we have the question on choose the option that marks the correct order of the books and authors in the following questions. Here we need to match the authors with their books, and let's look at the match. We have the writers like Richard Tottel, Roger Ascham, Philip Sidney and Thomas Kidd, and the books like Astrophil and Stella, The Spanish Tragedy, Songs and Sonnets and The Schoolmaster. And these are the major writers and major books, so this is very, very important. Even you can expect it in the next upcoming exam. So let's look at the options. And Richard Tottel published and written Songs and Sonnets, and it is also famously known as Tottel's Miscellany. So the first option, Richard Tottel is matched with Songs and Sonnets. So 1/3. And Roger Ascham has written The Schoolmaster, and in this work he explained his views on education. So the correct answer related to Roger Ascham is The Schoolmaster. And Philip Sidney wrote Astrophil and Stella. It is a sonnet sequence. So Philip Sidney, third option, is related to the first book, Astrophil and Stella. And Thomas Kidd wrote The Spanish Tragedy. So the correct option here is the first option, Richard Tottel, Songs and Sonnets or Tottel's Miscellany, Roger Ascham, The Schoolmaster, Philip Sidney, Astrophil and Stella, Thomas Kidd, The Spanish Tragedy. And let's move towards next question. 69th question. Again we have the match. Here they give books and authors. We need to match the books with authors. And we have writers like Christopher Marlowe, William Makepeace Thackeray, Thomas Middleton and Robert Burton. And the books like Anatomy of Melancholy, Dido, Queen of Carthage, The Bedford Row Conspiracy, Woman Beware Woman. And Christopher Marlowe wrote Dido, Queen of Carthage. So first writer is related to the second work, and William Makepeace Thackeray written The Bedford Row Conspiracy, and Thomas Middleton wrote Woman Beware Woman, and Robert Burton wrote Anatomy of Melancholy. So the correct option here is the second option. Christopher Marlowe, Dido, Queen of Carthage, William Makepeace Thackeray, The Bedford Row Conspiracy, Thomas Middleton, Woman Beware Woman, and Robert Burton, Anatomy of Melancholy. Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy is very important when it comes to English literature. You can see the question in the upcoming examination and also in any of the examinations related to English literature. Let's move towards next question. And the 70th question, again we have the match. Here they gave us list of writers and the books, and the writers like John Milton, Anne Bradstreet, Thomas Hobbes, Sir Thomas Browne, and the books like The 10th Muse Lately Sprung Up in America, The Leviathan, Religio Medici, and Areopagitica. Let's look at the correct answer. John Milton wrote Areopagitica. So first writer is related to fourth book. Areopagitica is a work on freedom of speech and it was written by John Milton. Anne Bradstreet. Anne Bradstreet is an American poet and wrote The 10th Muse Lately Sprung Up in America. So the second writer is related to the first work. And Thomas Hobbes wrote The Leviathan. This is very important. Thomas Hobbes wrote The Leviathan. And the next one, Sir Thomas Browne wrote Religio Medici. Religio Medici is also known as the religion of a doctor. Write it down in your notebook. Religio Medici is also known as the religion of a doctor, and it was written by Sir Thomas Browne. So the correct option here is third option. Before moving to the next question, let me give you a gentle reminder. If you like the content, click on the like button and share it to your friends who are in need of this information. And do subscribe to my channel and click on the bell button so you will be getting notifications if I upload any new video. Let's move towards next question, 71st question. And again we have match the following. Here they gave us list of writers and list of books. John Ruskin, Coventry Patmore, Robert Browning, and George Eliot. And the books are Men and Women, Adam Bede, The Angel in the House, Modern Painters. And John Ruskin wrote Modern Painters, and it is a work on art and architecture. So the correct option is John Ruskin wrote Modern Painters, and Coventry Patmore wrote The Angel in the House. It was a famous poem, The Angel in the House, written by Coventry Patmore. And Robert Browning wrote Men and Women. George Eliot wrote Adam Bede. So the correct option here is fourth option. Let's move towards next question, 72nd question. Again we have match the following. So be careful while doing the match the following. If you remember all these works and authors, you will be able to do the match the following. You can expect the repeated questions in the upcoming exam. So be prepared with these works and the authors who wrote all these works. And we have various writers like Samuel Butler, Henry James, Rudyard Kipling, Joseph Conrad, and the works like The Way of All Flesh, The Ambassadors, Kim, The Heart of Darkness. Here the beauty of this question is all the questions are directly matched perfectly. Samuel Butler wrote The Way of All Flesh and Henry James wrote The Ambassadors, Rudyard Kipling wrote, Jim Kim and Joseph Conrad wrote The Heart of Darkness. So the first option is correct. And when it comes to Rudyard Kipling, he also wrote The Jungle Book, which is very famous. You can expect the questions on The Jungle Book written by Rudyard Kipling. In that book, The Jungle Book, Rudyard Kipling introduced a famous character, Mowgli. Let's move towards next question. 73rd question. Again, we have the question on match the following. Here they gave us the list of writers and the books. And the writers are Christopher Fry, T.S. Eliot, John Osborne, Agatha Christie. And the books like The Cocktail Party, The Ladies Not for Burning, The Mousetrap, Look Back in Anger. Here, Christopher Fry wrote The Ladies Not for Burning, and T.S. Eliot wrote The Cocktail Party. John Osborne wrote Look Back in Anger, and Agatha Christie wrote The Mousetrap. So the correct option here is third option. When it comes to T.S. Eliot, he wrote another famous work called The Wasteland. You can expect the questions on The Wasteland. You can expect the question like this. Who is the writer of The Wasteland? And the answer is T.S. Eliot. Let's move towards next question. And read the poem given below and answer the questions. Here they gave us the poem Fire and Ice written by Robert Frost, and you need to answer the questions basing upon this poem. Let's look at the poem Fire and Ice written by Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction of ice, it is also great and would suffice. This is the poem Fire and Ice written by Robert Frost. Let's look at the questions. In the poem, the fire symbolizes, in the poem, fire symbolizes human desire. So the correct option here is second option. Let's look at the lines of the poem. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Yes, desire and fire, we can see them in the consequent lines. And here he symbolized fire with the desire. So the correct answer for this question is desire, second option. Let's move towards next question. Hold in line 4 is closest in meaning to. Yes. Hold in the fourth line means believe. Let's look at the poem. I hold with those who favor fire, which means I believe with those who favor fire. So the correct answer here is believe. First option is correct. Let's look at the next question. The lines ice is also great is an example of irony. Here he is in an ironical way, he is saying that ice is also great. So the correct answer here is irony. Fourth option is correct. Let's move towards 77 question. The word perish means to die. How? Suddenly and violently. So the word perish means suddenly and violently. Let's look at the lines of the poem. But if it had to perish twice, so here he used the word perish, which means dying suddenly and violently. So the correct answer for the 77th question is second one, suddenly and dying suddenly and violently. Let's move towards next question. Desire is the closest synonym to greed, need, hunger, and possessiveness. So, as we all know, desire is related to greediness. So, the correct answer here is greed. So, when desire increases, it turns into greed. So, the correct option is the first option. 79th question. The subjunctive mode would in the last line implies a remote eventuality, a probable situation, a hypothetical situation, and the fourth option, an alternative eventuality. And here the correct option is a hypothetical situation. Let's look at the lines of the poem where we can find the word would. And it is also great and would suffice. Here he is saying it in a hypothetical way. So the correct option for the 79 question is a hypothetical situation. Here would implies a hypothetical situation. Let's move towards 80th question. Which of the following description fits the poem thematically? Yes, here in this poem, Robert Frost is talking about perishing, that is, dying suddenly and violently. And he talked about ice and fire. So it is related to apocalyptic, not futuristic, not fantastic, and not anachronic. The poem is an apocalyptic poem. So the correct option for this question is apocalyptic, first option. Let's move towards next question. 81 question. The presence of French words in English can be explained primarily by the Scandinavian migrations, the 100 Years' War, Henry V's conquest of France, and the Norman conquest. Yes, the correct answer here is the Norman conquest. So the presence of French words in English can be explained primarily by the Norman conquest, which we can see in the early 2nd century, early 11th century, 1066, the Norman conquest, 1066. So the correct answer here is the Norman conquest. Let's move towards 82nd question. English changed its script to the Roman thanks to the arrival of angles in waves over time, the invasion of Britain by Julius Caesar in 55 BCE, and the arrival of Christianity in the late AD 6th century. And the last option, the gradual dying away of the runic form of writing. And the correct answer here is the arrival of Christianity in the late AD 6th century. English changed its script to the Roman thanks to the arrival of Christianity in the late AD 6th century. And the correct option is third one. Let's move towards next question, 83rd question. Dr. Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of the English Language was published in... Yes, this is the famous work written by Dr. Samuel Johnson, and it is the first dictionary written by Dr. Samuel Johnson, and it was published in the year 1755. And it is very, very important when it comes to English literature. You can expect this question in any exam related to English literature. Dr. Samuel Johnson's Dictionary of English Language was published in 1755. So the correct option is second one. Let's move towards next question, 84th question. RP, the most respected form of English, stands for... RP is nothing but received pronunciation? Let's look at the options. Royal pronunciation, redacted pronunciation, received pronunciation, and revised pronunciation. And we got the correct option in the third option, received pronunciation. RP is the most respected form of English and stands for received pronunciation. So the correct option is third option. Let's move towards next question, 85th question. Which of the following is not true of the great vowel shift in English? Yes, underline the word not true. It occurred gradually between AD 1400 and AD 1700 for varied reasons. Yes, it is obviously true about the great vowel shift in English language. It occurred between 1400 AD and 1700 AD. And it was limited to vowels and did not include diphthongs and consonants. Don't misunderstand by the word the great vowel shift. It is not limited to vowels. It also included diphthongs and consonant. The shift in diphthongs and consonants. So it is not true about the great vowel shift in English. It was not limited to vowels. It included diphthongs and consonant. So second option is not true about the great vowel shift, which is the correct option. And it included the changes in the pronunciation of the long vowels. Yes, the great vowel shift included the changes in the pronunciation of the long vowels. It began in the southern England and gradually included all the dialects over time. Yes, it is obviously true about the great vowel shift in English. It began in southern England. So the correct answer here is second one, which is not true about the great vowel shift in English. Let's move towards next question, 86th question. The term Incorn refers to the words that were exclusive to Latin, dialectical in nature, obscure and arcane, technical and borrowed. The word Incorn. Yes. Incorn is related to the words which are obscure and arcane, which means Incorn means complex words which are very difficult to understand. So the correct answer here is obscure and arcane. Incorn refers to the words that were obscure and arcane, which means complex words which were very difficult to understand. So the correct option is third option. Let's move towards 87th question. The idea of the cycles of English dividing the language between native and non-native speakers was proposed by, we have various linguists like Michael West, Braj Kachru, Kumar Vadivelu and Skutnab Kangas. And the correct answer here is Braj Kachru. Braj Kachru introduced the idea of the circles of English. And here Braj Kachru introduced three major circles. They are inner circle, outer circle and expanding circle. He introduced these circles basing upon how English used in and what is the status of English in different countries. And the circles are, you can expect the question on the circles of English proposed by Braj Kachru, and they are inner circle, outer circle and expanding circle. And the correct answer here is Braj Kachru. Let's move towards next question, 88th question. The printing press was introduced into England by, yes, this is very important question. You can expect this question in any exam related to English literature. Write down this question in your notebook. This is going to be very important question. You can expect this question in the upcoming exam. Printing press was introduced by William Caxton. William Caxton introduced the printing press in England, and he introduced it in the year 1476. Remember the year 1476. The printing press was introduced into England by William Caxton in the year 1476. So the correct answer here is first option, William Caxton. Let's move towards next question. The migrants to Britain from Europe included all the following except. Yes, so many people conquered Britain, and various tribes like the Saxons, the Jutes, the Celts, and the Finns, they never attacked, they never conquered Britain. So the correct option here is the Finns, except, which means not the migrants to Britain. So the Finns never came to Britain. The other tribes, the Saxons, the Jutes, and the Celts came to Britain. They are the migrants to Britain. That's why we have various Englishes like Anglo-Saxon English and Anglo-Norman English. So the correct answer here is the Finns. Here you need to underline the word except, the Finns. Next question. It can be argued that English literature begins with. Yes, here English literature, they are talking about English literature begins with which verb? Here they gave us various works which can be considered as the beginning of English literature. And the works are Pastoral Care, Beowulf, Pious Plowman, and Arcadia. Yes, these are the books which we can see in the beginning of the English literature, but Beowulf is considered as the work which began the English literature. There is a famous phrase called wolf to wolf, Beowulf to Virginia Woolf. The major literature we can find between these periods, from Beowulf to, which is the work, and to wolf. Another wolf is Virginia Woolf. So the correct answer here is Beowulf. It can be argued that English literature begins with the work Beowulf. So the correct answer here is second option. Let's move towards next question. Here they gave us a passage and we need to answer the questions after reading this passage. Let's look at the passage. A bizarre experiment in the United States has demonstrated that psychiatrists cannot distinguish effectively between people who are mentally disturbed and those who are sane. According to its originators, the experiment demonstrates the fallibility of conventional psychiatric diagnosis. It also lends considerable support to the position taken by radical psychiatrists like R.D. Laing, who argue that diagnoses of mental disease are often no more than convenient labels designed to make life easier for doctors. 8 perfectly normal people, by shamming symptoms of a mild kind, successfully gained admission to psychiatric wards where they remained undetected for as long as they could stand it. Once admitted, their behavior was normal in every way, but doctors and nurses continued to treat them as disturbed. In every case but one, the diagnosis was schizophrenia. Once they were labeled as mentally ill, everything the pseudo patients did tended to confirm the diagnosis in the eyes of the medical staff, though other patients in the hospital were much less easy to convince. The 8 pseudo patients included 3 psychologists, a pediatrician, a psychiatrist, a painter, and a housewife. All 8 assumed false names, and those connected with the medical profession also invented false occupations so as not to attract special attention from fellow professionals. The hospitals chosen ranged from expensive private units to dingy publicly run institutions. To gain admission, the pseudo-patients told the whole truth about their lives, their emotions, and their personal relationships, all of which were within the normal range. And they lied only about their names, symptoms, and in some cases their occupations. The symptoms they complained of were hearing disembodied voices saying the words empty, hollow, and third. This was sufficient in every case for them to be classified as mentally ill. Once inside, they stopped pretending and behaved as normally as they could. Their stays inside varied from 7 to 52 days with an average of 19 days. As many as a third of the real patients inside detected that they were frauds. You're not crazy, you're a journalist or a professor. You're checking upon the hospital was a typical comment from a fellow patient. The patients spent much of their time taking extensive notes, but even this did not apparently raise any suspicions in the doctor's mind. Patient engages in writing behavior was the daily nursing comment on one patient, but nobody troubled to ask him what he was writing. The experiment was carried out under the supervision of Professor D.L. Roshanhan of Stanford University, himself one of the 8 fake patients, writing about the experiment in this week's Science. He concludes, we cannot distinguish the sane from the insane in mental hospitals. How many people, one wonders, are sane but not recognized as such in our psychiatric institutions? How many have been stigmatized by well-intentioned but nevertheless erroneous diagnosis? In Professor Rosenhan's view, the hospital itself is an environment that distorts judgment. As evidence, he quotes what happened to patients who asked doctors perfectly sensible questions. They took the form, "Pardon me, Dr. X, could you tell me when I'll be eligible for ground privileges?" or some similar request courteously present. In almost 3/4 of the cases, the psychiatrist's response was to walk on head averted. Only one doctor in 25 stopped and tried to answer the question. But the clinching piece of evidence comes from another experiment in which a hospital was warned that pseudo patients would be presenting themselves. Faced with this threat to their professional reputation, the doctors admitting patients became much more conservative in their diagnosis. Of 193 patients presenting themselves, one doctor was firmly convinced that 41 were frauds, while another suspected 23. In fact, no fake patients had arrived at all. In the present state of knowledge, there seems a little hope of more accurate diagnostics. Doctors should try to err on the side of caution in Rosenhan's opinion and refrain from sending the distressed into insane places. That and a more benign environment inside the institution could help to sort out the insane from the merely confused. Yes, this is a long passage, we need to comprehend this passage, and while you are doing this question, the questions based on comprehension and analysis of the poem, read the passage and the poem twice until unless you get the complete understanding of this passage. you will not be able to answer the questions. And my suggestion is that read the passage twice, 2 times. Read this passage, then you will get an idea about the passage. Then you will be able to answer the questions. Let's look at the questions. The word radical in paragraph 2 means. Here we have basic, fundamental, thorough and complete, holding extreme views, and the fourth option, revolutionary. The word radical in the paragraph 2 means holding extreme views. So the correct option here is third option. Let's move towards next question, 92nd question. Which word in paragraph 3 has the meaning mentally ill? Yes. Disturbed, shamming symptoms, undetected, mild kind. Yes. The first option, disturbed, is directly related to the word mentally ill. Disturbed means mentally disturbed, mentally ill. So the correct answer here is first option. Let's move towards 93rd question. Which of the following surprised the writer? Let's look at the question options. Which surprised the writer? That the psychiatric terms are designed to profit doctors. The most of the doctors are dedicated and sincere. That Professor Roshanhan noticed that the real patient could be very courteous. And all these options didn't surprise the writer, but the fourth option, that about 1/3 of the real patients could detect the pseudo patients. Yes, the real patients who detected the pseudo patients, this surprised the writer. So the correct option here is fourth one. Let's move towards 94th question. The word this at the beginning of paragraph 7 stands for. Yes, this at the beginning of paragraph 7 stands for symptoms complained about by the pseudo patients. Yes, in the beginning of 7th paragraph we can see the word this, and which means symptoms complained about by the pseudo scientists. So the correct answer is third option. Let's move towards 95th question. Which of the following is an accurate statement about the aim of experiment conducted by the Professor Rosenhan and his colleagues? Yes, as we already read the passage, Professor Rosenhan conducted an experiment, and he was also one of the pseudo patients, and here he did the experiment to highlight the tendencies and assumption in conventional psychiatric diagnosis. So the correct answer here is second one, to highlight the tendencies and assumption in conventional psychiatric diagnosis. Let's move towards 96th question. Yes, the tone of the writer is, we have options like satirical, critical, formal, and debating. And the tone of the writer is very formal. So the correct answer here is formal. Third option is the correct answer. Let's move towards 97th question. Which of the following statements best describe the position held by psychiatrists like R.D. Laing? Yes. And the correct answer for this question is the diagnoses are formulaic without any proper examination of the real condition of the patient. Yes, R.D. Laing. And the option is related to R.D. Laing is the diagnoses are formulaic without any proper examination of the real conditions of the patients. So the correct option here is third option. Let's move towards 98th question. In the paragraph 11, the writer says, in Professor Rosenhan's view, the hospital itself is an environment that distorts judgment. Here the judgment means. See, look at the options. The ability on part of the patients to think rationally. No. The experiments view of what was happening in the psychiatric institutions. No. The doctor's diagnosis of patient's illness. Yes. Here the judgment is related to whether the patient is mentally disturbed, mentally ill, or normal. So this is the diagnosis, finding the illness of the patient. So the correct option here is the doctor's diagnosis of patient's illness. So the third option is the correct answer. Let's move towards next question, 99th question. Who are the intended audience of this piece of writing? Yes, the general educated public are the intended audience of this piece of writing. The writer wrote this piece of writing, and he intended that the general educated public are going to be the audience of this piece of writing. So the correct answer here is second option. Let's move towards next question, 100th question. A suitable title for the passage could be. Yes, we have various options. Who is crazy, psychiatric wards, who is lying, and psychiatric diagnosis, and who is crazy. Yes, the suitable title for the passage could be who is crazy, whether the doctors or the real patients. So who's crazy could be the suitable title for the passage. And this is all about the 100 questions from this previous paper. And prepare well for the exam. Watch all these videos, and after watching these videos, prepare on your own self, because preparing for MA English entrance examination is very important to get an admission into MA English. So prepare well, don't misuse your time, utilize every minute in your life. For the exam, we have very less days for the exam, so prepare well, because you'll feel regret if you miss the chance of getting MA English entrance examination, MA English admission into famous universities. Then you will, if you miss this chance, if you do not prepare well, you will miss the chance of getting admission into good universities, good colleges which you want to join. You will miss that opportunity, then you will feel regret. So prepare well for the examination, and I am going to upload more content related to TG CPGET MA English entrance examination. Stay tuned to our channel. And if you like the content, click on the like button and share it to your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Click on the bell button, so that you will get the notifications related to the upcoming videos. If you like the content, if you share and subscribe to this content, I will get the motivation to do more videos on TG CPGET MA English entrance examination. If you like this content, this gives me motivation to make more and more content on this. So it all depends on you. For more interesting updates on TG CPGET 2025 MA English entrance examination, visit my channel. Thank you for watching.